This session is going to be recorded uh, and will be posted on our website with a list of questions and their answers. In a moment, I'm going to hand over things to Candice Huber, who is our Farmer Grant Administrator. A quick shout out first for our projects database. That's projects.sare.org. That is where you are going to go to submit your proposal, and is also where you can search for other projects that have happened in the past. So it's a great way for doing a little bit of extra research, and it's a super powerful tool for coming up with sustainable projects to try on your farm. I'm also going to launch a welcome poll here as Candace starts into a presentation, and then we will take questions in the chat or raised hands. We'll work our way through those. Emma is here as well and is going to be supporting us with answering questions in the chat. And without further ado, take it away, Candace.
Hello,
Hello.
everyone. Welcome to our lunchtime question and answer session for the Farmer Grants. I'm going to share my screen. And there we go. Share. Let's see. Can you all see my PowerPoint?
It isn't pulling up for me yet, Candace. It's a little slow today, it seems like.
It's, I think it's my, says your screen sharing is paused. Let me just try again from the beginning here. Share. All right, that should be working. Is that working? Yay, 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 yay. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Um, Thank you everybody for coming today. Thanks, Vander. Thanks, Emma, for helping out. If my internet completely collapses, Emma's great and she will step in for me and be able to answer any of your questions. She'll also be answering questions in the chat. So feel free to, as we go along, put questions in the chat, or you can always raise your hand. And if I'm just not seeing you, please pipe right up. So first, I want to introduce myself. I'm Candice Huber. I manage the Farmer Grant and the Partnership Grant programs for Northeast SARE. Now, as you know, we're currently accepting proposals for the 2026 Farmer Grant Program, and they are due on December 9th at 5 p.m. I'm going to explain the basics of the Farmer Grant Program as I've done in the previous Q&A sessions, and then we'll open it up to questions. And then if there's no specific questions, I've got a lot I can talk about applying for a grant. So SARE stands for Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education. It is a federally funded program through the USDA National Institute of Food and Agriculture. Now, there are 4 regions in the country, and we are the Northeast region serving these 12 states and the District of Columbia. And the Farmer Grant Program is one of 6 competitive grant programs that we have. 7, sorry, I keep forgetting to, we're now 7 programs. But anyway, the first criteria is that you have to be working in the Northeast region. Now, I just want to mention here that we have another program called the Partnership Grant Program. It's very similar, but the applicant is not the farmer. It's someone who works with farmers. So if you're listening and you're not a farmer, but you want to work with one, then the Partnership Grant might be the one for you. And the deadline for that program will be next April, and you can find out more about it on our website. So these are just the basics of the Farmer Grant Program. Farmer Grants are for commercial producers who have an innovative idea that they want to test. The projects should seek new knowledge that other farmers can use and address questions that improve the sustainability of farms. A technical advisor must be involved. The maximum amount of funds you can request is $30,000. You'll need to put together a detailed, realistic budget. And it's important to note that the funds are paid on a reimbursement basis. So you and your farm need to be able to manage the expenses up front. Projects typically run from 1 to 2 years, but the absolute maximum is 3 years. Applicants may only submit one proposal per program per year. And as I mentioned, the deadline is December 9th, and all the proposals are submitted online. And of course, the detailed instructions can be found in our call for proposals on our website, and Emma will pop that link in the chat. It's really important that you read the entire call for proposals. All the instructions are in there for how to apply. So the main goal of our program is to help other farmers in the region. So for your proposal to be competitive, you want to demonstrate that your project will benefit sustainable agriculture. And you can use our outcome statement to address that. And that is, Northeast agricultural communities honor the holistic connection among land, water, air, and all living beings. Agriculture in the Northeast is sustainable so that all farmers and farm employees steward resources to ensure sustainability, resilience, economic viability, and a high quality of life. And projects should also address our legislative priorities. And again, all of this is in the call for proposals. Our legislative priorities are soil health, conservation of natural resources, water quality, farmer health and safety and quality of life, livestock health, and farm labor. Projects having a significant impact or impression on farmers and farming communities is also critical. The impact can be economic, social, or environmental. For example, how does the research support the farmer community livelihoods? How does the research build strong economies through local or regional trade? Or how does the research improve crop production? How does it impact other farmers? And for impact, replicability is very important. It's the ability of another farmer or farming community to obtain similar results when applying the same methods. So in other words, another farmer can utilize the results of your research to benefit their farming practices or behavior. Also, innovation is important. That's defined as the development or adoption of new concepts or ideas. The results should improve the welfare and the well-being of individual farmers and farming communities and be reproducible, but also they need to be innovative and creative. So innovation can also be social and develop and implement novel and effective solutions. So they can meet social and environmental challenges. It can be education, a new way of educating, a new curriculum. There's all kinds of examples of innovation. Within the the scope of Northeast SARE, that includes introducing a new behavior. It could maybe not be a new behavior in general, but for a certain community it's new, so that would be considered innovative. It could be a new market that's being entered, a new source of materials or goods, or a new way to handle a situation, meet a challenge, maybe some new equipment, or improved organizational structure and or capacity. There's all kinds of things. Now, hopefully you all have decided at this point whether you're going to be applying or not, and whether you are in fact eligible. But just quick touch on eligibility. In order to be eligible, you need to be in the Northeast region and you need to qualify as a farmer. You can be a farm owner or an employee of a farm. So if you're an employee, you will need to get a grant commitment form signed and submitted with your application, and that will show that your organization approves of your proposal and will be backing you up, and that's who we would be contracting with, and that's where the budget and the finances would go through. Same if you're an employee of a farm or a nonprofit organization or for-profit organization, it's all the same if you're an employee. This grant program also accepts all types and scales of farms. So you could be farming on a large scale or small scale, or organic or conventional practices, urban or rural, full or part-time, etc. but the farm that you own or work on must be a commercial operation with an established farm income of at least $1,000 per year. We use this USDA definition of a farm, any place from which $1,000 or more of agricultural products were produced and sold or normally would have been sold during the census year. We consider that the year prior to the deadline. So that's $1,000 between December 2024 and December 2025. On our website, we do have a document that explains this further, and it also provides examples of what qualifies and what does not. That's our definition of a farm. And Emma will probably pop that into the chat. You don't need to show a profit to us. We don't require any information or evidence about your farm's tax status. So when you submit your application, you're basically signing off that you meet the definition of a farm for us and that you're eligible. Now, I do have more I can talk about, but I will stop here and take some questions. Let's see. Okay, so I'm assuming it looks like there was some technical stuff, but I'm assuming that's all set. I will not be sending out a copy of the slides. As I said, all this information is in the call for proposals. However, if you have more information, or would like more information or something specific from this presentation, let me know and I can send it to you. And Emma put my email address, which is also on the slide here, in the chat. The past projects approved page is for reference as assistance. It does not mean similar new projects are not acceptable. That is correct. We do accept applications from beginning farmers if you're at the stage. So for the USDA, beginning farmers actually goes up to 10 years. So if you've at least had a year of production and income or sales with your farm, then we do accept applications from beginning farmers. A question about reimbursement. Is it on a month-to-month basis or a longer time period? We suggest, so this is after your project has been awarded. If it is awarded, you will be sending us an invoice periodically to get reimbursed for your expenses. We do suggest monthly basis is fine. If you have that many expenses coming in, that's absolutely, we like you to submit the sooner the better, but no more than on a monthly basis. Typically, people do quarterly. But again, we want to make sure you get your money as quickly as possible after you spend it. So it does take 30 days to process the reimbursement and for UVM to get the money out to you. And also, I wanted to mention for the final payment, we do require the final report to be submitted and approved. So we hold back the last 20% of the award. And then when the final report is approved, I will notify our finance team and then they process your last invoice for that last 20%. And I'm going to put in a link to the call for proposals and the grant management system. That link is also in the call for proposals. If two farms are collaborating, it doesn't matter who is the lead applicant. It doesn't really matter, but it does matter in the sense that if you want one person to be the one who's going to be spending the money and getting the reimbursements, we need one person as the project leader who will be my point of contact for everything from contracting to budget stuff to any changes needed along the way, whether it's budget reallocations or an extension of the project, or if you have any questions or challenges, and for reporting also. But also that's who UVM will be contracting with. So you want to make sure that the person who is the applicant, the project leader, who will be contracting with is prepared to take care of that financial end. Does the size of the grant request influence the likelihood of acceptance? No, it does not. you can ask for up to $30,000, and reviewers are looking for a budget that reflects the project realistically. We really want to make sure you have considered all the expenses. There's nothing worse than getting into the middle of your project and realizing you hadn't thought about X, Y, and Z, and reviewers are going to want to be sure that you're going to actually be able to complete the project. So take your time with the budget and make sure that it reflects what you're going to need. And we do like to also see farmers being paid for their time for a reasonable price. Farmers historically undervalue their time, their labor, the worth of their labor. So make sure that you put that in there, and also your own time on the project and anybody else that's working on the project, and make sure that's in there. But no, a project that's a $29,000 project is not going to have any edge over projects that's $8,000. It just all depends on what the work is and how the scope of work aligns with the budget. What's the best format to send in the grant? Well, it is required. You do have to submit it online. So make sure that you read the call for proposals. We do, in the call for proposals, we have a link to a Word document that you can use to prepare your proposal. So it's just got the questions, and each question has a word count. So you want to pay attention to that word count, and you can do all that in this document, and then go to submit it by just copying and pasting the question answers into the online submission, and answering the other questions, like your name, the project start date, project end date, all that stuff. But you have to submit it online. If you have any problems with that, please let me know as soon as possible. Oh yeah, and Emma put that Word document that you can prepare your proposal in the chat. Should we expect the technical advisor to be paid? So the technical advisor can be paid, absolutely. A lot of times technical advisors don't ask for payment if they're in a role, like if their job is something that's supposed to support farmers anyway. But if they do need to be paid, which is perfectly reasonable for their time, you can put that into the budget. We do need to know exactly what they're going to be doing and the amount they're going to want. The technical advisor role can be different for everybody. Some people just use the technical advisors to help them prepare their project, prepare their proposal, and maybe do some troubleshooting along the way. Some people may use their technical advisors to actually do work on the project, like identifying pests or maybe doing some outreach. So it's perfectly reasonable to pay for all that time. One thing we cannot do is pay for time spent in preparing the proposal. We can't pay for anything that's done prior to the award date, which will be around March 1st. And what is a reasonable rate of pay for farmers? We don't have a specific rate except for what we pay farmers. But it could be different in your area. So make sure to, work it out. But we currently pay, I think it's $57 an hour for farmers who participate in our, technical committee or other work that we have that we use farmers for. Human subjects research question. We'll be surveying local farmers and our program alumni and our program participants to collect data on needs and evaluate our program. We feel that is not large enough for generalizable conclusions, so we aren't subject to the human subjects research requirements. Well, actually, anybody who works with human subjects, whether you use the data in a certain way or not, if it's part of your project, you do need to answer the section on human subjects research. It'll probably be exempt from a review, but we do need to make sure of that. We're responsible, and you're responsible to make sure that we go through, have all the right permissions, and the human subjects research as well as the livestock research is subject to review to be able to make sure that all of our projects are done with the welfare of animals and the welfare of human subjects in mind. So UVM has all universities, institutions have in the research world, there's a IACUC committee and an IRB committee, which review these things to make sure that standards are maintained. Let's see. Two-part question. Does this funding come from USDA's budget or somewhere else? It does come from USDA's budget. Will awards come with a legal guarantee in writing that the grant will not be retroactively rescinded by USDA? I don't believe that language will be, we could put that in there, but how it works is UVM, our department, we apply for a grant from the USDA for our program for the year. It covers all of our grant programs, and then the USDA creates, once that's accepted, the USDA and UVM create a contract. So they have a contract that the USDA will be providing X amount of funds, and so it's all in a contract. It's all legally binding. So we have no reason to believe that we won't be able to pay those funds. And that's all I can really say about it, because that's what it is. I personally feel UVM is very good about, even during the government shutdown, they continue to pay our grants, even though they weren't going to get reimbursed. So UVM reimburses you, and then the government reimburses UVM. So even though UVM wasn't getting reimbursed, we were paying out on the grants. So we've got that UVM is in between us and the federal government. So we've got that extra layer of safety in there. And UVM's pretty committed. UVM is definitely very committed to making good on these. And we will have a contract with you. So we'll be legally bound to do that. Let's see. Can a member of the farm LLC be the technical advisor? Emma answered that nicely. Reviewers look for technical advisors to provide an outside perspective on the project. So we generally don't recommend someone who works at your farm. And it's not that it's like absolutely not allowed, but if you are, you'll want to make the case why this person is the right person for your technical advisors. Because reviewers, as Emma said, reviewers really look to make sure that the technical advisors are bringing in an outside perspective. Now, if you want to have somebody on your farm working on the project with you in an advisory capacity or in any way at all, you certainly can use them as put them in as a collaborator on the project, and then maybe have somebody else as the actual technical advisor, but that's up to you. When do we find out if we got the grant? Awards will be announced in late February, and you'll receive an email whether you're funded or not. If you're not funded, we will supply comments on your proposal so that you could apply again the following year, or if you have another source of funding that you want to try for, you can, those comments maybe would be helpful. I'm the TA for this project. Our focus is establishing healthy soil biology before planting crops. With the grant starting in March, I'm concerned the timeline won't allow enough time to build sufficient biological activity before the growing season. Could we begin the soil preparation work earlier and still be eligible for reimbursement? We cannot pay for any work or any expenses made prior to the award announcement date, which would be the contracting date, which is going to be around March 1st. So, no, I mean, you're welcome to start on the project, but there's no guarantee that you're going to get the award, first of all. And second of all, we can't reimburse for anything prior to the award date. Likewise, we can't pay for anything after the award date too. So just for your information, the budget is limited to the start and the end date of the project. Is it possible to have both a technical advisor supporting the project management and a separate subcontractor who is a subject matter expert as part of the project implementation in one farmer application? Yes, absolutely. Reviewers love seeing collaborations, and they love seeing when you have the expertise of different people, different expertises coming in to help you. Um, it just increases your chances of being successful in completing your project. And reviewers really value collaboration because not only does it help you get your project done, but it also creates a lot of networks and ripple effects that otherwise wouldn't be happening. Can a proposal be a standalone project with its own scope of work under an umbrella of partnerships and programming, which has other sources of funding? Yes. So if you have a project and it's building off of maybe another project, you'll definitely want to explain all that in the proposal. And if you have a project and it's a part of a bigger project, you'll want to explain there's a section in the proposal near the budget about other sources of funding. And you want to explain those other sources of funding and what you're going to be doing for them, especially if there's any reliance, any need for that other work in the proposal that you're submitting to SARE. So in other words, if there's something that you're proposing to do, but it is contingent upon or it's necessary for you to complete this other piece of work first that's being funded by somebody else, you're going to want to make sure you explain that because reviewers are going to want to see that you will be able to do the project. So if there's something that's hanging out there that's like, well, if we don't get this done, then this other stuff might not work. They're going to want to make sure that you can get that first stage done. So explaining all that is good. Even if it's not done yet, they'll just want to feel confident about it. Outreach question. Our project is refining slash professionalizing our farmer trainee program. For outreach, we're considering holding a job fair post program to connect our program participants with local farm employers, apothecaries, and other agricultural adjacent employers. As well at the job fair, we would like to highlight employers, the type of training we offer, and some herbal SOPs. Is this type of outreach viable for this grant outreach requirements? Yes, absolutely. I think I'm following it along. And it sounds like, yes, that would any kind of outreach where you're going to be sharing your project or the results of your project is acceptable outreach. So for instance, even if you haven't done it yet, if you're going to a conference and sharing things about your project, that's acceptable outreach. But we also do want to make sure that the results of your project get out to other farmers as well. So it sounds like these things that you mentioned in this question would be helpful to other farmers who are training their employees or for other farmers who need training. So I think that all sounds reasonable. Our LLC leases land on agricultural land for a nursery. One member has orchard experience. Would the last owner be the farm? Wait, I get this little bubble thing that covers up part of and I can't figure out how to get rid of it. I think it says the last owner be the farm and the LLC, the technical advisor. Maybe that word LA, I can only see LA. I can't see the rest of that word.
It's land.
Land. Oh, that makes more sense. Thank you. Would the landowner be the farm and the LLC the technical advisor? No. The landowner, no, the LLC would be the farm. It's because you're the farmer, you're the one doing the work, you're the one with the project, you're the one with the business, you're the one who's getting the income generated from the products you're creating, developing, growing, producing. And then the landowner of the farm does not need to be involved. If you lease the land, reviewers will, you should explain that in your project team section. Reviewers will want to know about the resources you have, and they'll want to feel confident that you're going to have the land to do the project that you want to do. So you can explain under project team, when you explain about yourself, that you lease the land, and a little bit about that. You've been doing it for X number of years, and you've got a contract for so long or whatever. And the landowner would not need to be involved at all in the application. That's all we would need to know about them, would be that they've committed to leasing you the land. We don't, and then your technical advisor would have to be somebody else, whoever you may have the expertise you need for what you're actually doing for the project. Sounds like it would be an orchard focused project. And if you still have questions about that, Anthony, let me know, and I can we could chat later about that. Understanding that the grant will not be able to reimburse for activity prior to March 1st grant start, does the program or the reviewers encourage seeing prerequisite work in the application, i.e. some work will be done this winter that lays some of the groundwork for the experiment that will be funded by the grant? Should we include that in the narrative? Well, if you're planning on doing that anyway, whether you get the award or not, and it would be helpful to your project, yeah, reviewers would love to see that. One question I do often hear though from reviewers is, boy, what's going to happen if they don't get the award? So you want to make sure you're not going too far down that path, unless you can sustain it in another way besides having an award from us. That being said, all of that, reviewers do want to see that there is a need in your proposal. So this has nothing to do with doing any work in the winter, but reviewers do want to see that there's a need for your project, that farmers have shown that this is something that they're interested in learning more about, or that they've had similar challenges, that sort of thing. So sometimes people do like needs assessments, and those can be done. The reviewers do like to see those done prior to the project, but only if you can report on it in the proposal. It wouldn't really do much in that time between the proposal due date and the award. Again, I'm not sure if I explained that very well, so feel free to let me know. We can talk about it later. Can I cover 2 different crops with new ways to grow each crop? Yes, you definitely can. You'll want to explain why you're doing those 2 different crops, why you're working with those 2 different crops, and why you chose them. You want to make sure that they are that the growing is connected in some way, or that there's some commonality, so that it makes sense to work with 2 different crops rather than just do more with one crop. Explain all that in your proposal, so reviewers can understand why you've chosen those specific crops. I often hear that as a question from reviewers, and I wonder why they chose to work with this. And one of my biggest tips for submitting a proposal is, don't make any assumptions that reviewers know anything about what you're doing. Don't use jargon. If you're going to use acronyms, make sure you spell them out the first time you use them with the acronym in parentheses. And the less reviewers need to work to read your proposal, the easier it will be for them to score them, and score them favorably, because when they're working to understand what you're trying to say, it makes it hard for them to really score all the different criteria. So the easier you make it for them to understand what you're doing, I think the better your chances are. Does this cover macroalgae, seaweed, fishing, aquaculture? Yes, we consider aquaculture fish farming. It could be plant, it could be aquatic species of plants, it could be shellfish, it could be fish. Yeah, Emma, thank you. We fund aquaculture that is an element of husbandry or cultivation. We fund many seaweed, scallop, oyster proposals. We do not fund wild fisheries. On the subject of collaboration, if the farmer is new to the collaborative process, does that qualify as results throughout a 3-year change of practice process? So I think what you're asking there is if a farmer is collaborating in this project and it's not something that they've done before, could that be considered a result as in the form of a change of practice? And yes, it could totally. Collaborations often can lead to a lot of things. And if the collaboration has improved things, or if one of the results of your project is by collaborating with X, Y, and Z, we were able to complete or be successful with reducing the labor or whatever, that's absolutely, definitely an important result that you'd want to share in your reporting. Are there funding ratios between farmer TA and admin/outreach that you could refer to where percentage of funds shift over time period of grant? No funding ratios. So you're going to submit the grant for the entire grant period, which would be 1, 2, or 3 years, or 1.5, whatever your time, however many months. And when you do that, you can submit you'll lay out each person or role in your under personnel, and then you'll put in what they're going to be doing, how many hours over the entire grant period, and the rate, whether it's hours or like a full-time equivalent, or some sort of salary unit. You'll put that all on one line with the hours and the number of, or the unit and the number of units and the price. And so for the total. Now, if you're going to be having if you feel that salaries are going to be changing, rates are going to be changing, you can say year 1 at this rate, so many hours, and then do another line for year 2 at this rate for so many hours. But there's no ratio between the different roles. It's all what people normally will get as part of, like if they're admin for your farm, what you would normally pay them is what you would put into that price per unit. And for technical advisors or anybody who's collaborating from outside of your organization, they would be listed as a consultant, and you would negotiate with them what their rate would be. They usually have an idea of what they charge. I think I answered that. In terms of making it easier for reviewers in the introduction problem solution section, would bullets be a recommended way of writing? If your content lends itself to specific bulleted items, that's absolutely fine. You can use bullets, you can use tables. Most people just do a narrative, but if in the problem and solution section, but it absolutely, the clearer, easier it is, again, for reviewers to read it, the better. Bullets are just fine. In the objective section, we do like for you to number your objectives, so then you can refer back to them for the methods, so you can say how each objective is going to be addressed. Is it mandatory to be paid as the farmer for this project? No, it's not mandatory. If you're going to be putting in extra time on the project, we'd love to be able to pay you for that. Sometimes, though, the materials for your project might add up to $30,000, so you choose to just donate your time. That's up to you. So it's not mandatory at all, but we do recommend it just because we want you to we've realized that your time is very valuable. My project may produce results that will be evident after the 3-year period of the prospective grant. How may we anticipate this? Yeah, that's a problem when we're working with, that's a flaw in this whole system is, so when UVM applies to the USDA for the grants, it's only a 5-year grant, 5-year agreement. And then we have administration on the beginning and end of that, which is why we can only provide funds for 3 years. And when you're only providing, when you have maybe like a agroforestry project or so you're working with any sort of perennial species, sometimes 3 years just isn't enough to be able to get meaningful results. Carbon sequestration, soil health, sometimes it's not realistic. So you would need to figure out a way to carve up the project so you have a goal for that first 3 years, and that would be meaningful. And then explain that it would be if these results get to such, then future research could follow up on it. But unfortunately, that's a challenging thing when you want to do something with perennials that takes longer than 3 years to show to grow big enough to be able to see any results in what you're looking at. So yeah, unfortunately, you'd have to figure out a way to contain it within 3 years. Okay. So when writing objectives, do they need to have time period noted, or can the time period be illustrated in the activities? The time period can be illustrated in the activities. Trying to figure out if all objectives need to be written as SMART with time periods listed or not. No, well, we ask for the timeline in the methods, the activities section. So you could just do it all in a timeline, lay it out as a timeline, project 1 at this time, then explain what you're going to be doing, project 2 at this time. Or you can do a timeline as a separate table maybe, or something that just addresses the timeline itself. Any way you would like to express that is fine. Are there definitions for farmer, like size or time? Are these realistic grants for startup and beginning farmers? Yes. Emma answered that. You have to generate $1,000. And she also gave the link for that document that I mentioned earlier, the definition of a farm, and it's very detailed, and there are examples. Would not completing crop reports disqualify farmers? And Emma answered that. We don't ask to see any crop reports. You are responsible for maintaining your farm in a way that meets all the regulations needed to be a farm. So we trust you. You check a box, like Emma said, that identifies you as eligible for the grant, and we trust that that's the case. Does creating valuable products from agricultural waste qualify? Yes, if you are a farmer. So as Emma said, the project leader must be a farmer, and the project results need to benefit farmers, not, for example, the waste processors. If I wanted to do high tunnel tabletop strawberries, could I start with the tabletop day neutral strawberries year 1, then year 2, put up the high tunnel over it? I believe I'm understanding that, and yes, however you would like to design the project is fine. You don't have to do it all at the beginning. If it's a process to get the strawberries to the point where you want the high tunnel over it, that's all part of the project. So as long as you explain the whole project and all of these different steps, that should be fine. Maybe you're asking if the high tunnel, if that could be expensed in year 2, and that would be fine too. Oh, I think I caught up on all the questions. We've got 15 minutes left. If anybody wants more of an explanation of something that I answered, please let me know. Or if you have another question, feel free to type it in the chat or just um, raise your hand.
And if you've asked a question in the chat and we haven't answered us, let us know because we've missed.
Oh, right. Yeah. If I missed one, let me know because I wish I could make this chat window bigger, but it's not doesn't do that for me, and I'm not sure why, but it would be nice. Be very helpful if I could. So just here's a follow-up. On the strawberry question, the applicant said trying to avoid missing 2026 crop on strawberry. Absolutely. And if you feel like I forget what the question was earlier, but if you feel like the timeline starting in March is too late for you to get started on something, you don't have to start your project then. If the timeline is such that, sometimes I think aquaculture and stuff there don't follow the same growing season as um, crop production. But if you feel like you wouldn't be able to start work on this project because of the timeline until later in the year or even the following winter, you can certainly do that. That's fine. If the project has multiple elements, is the proposal reviewed and approved on an element basis or there's that darn bubble again, or as a project approval, all or nothing? It's all or nothing, really. Reviewers aren't going to piece it out or look at individual elements. The project as a whole is what they would be funding. That being said, they will provide comments on all of these, and they may say something like, "This element was great. Maybe suggest maybe that you focus on that," or they'll give you suggestions on how to improve it if they feel like it's too. Sometimes people do put in too many different elements, things in their proposal, and it's a little scattered. They feel like, I don't know, maybe doing more is better, but sometimes doing less but focusing more and having a stronger project for that less amount of things is a better project. So you'll get more meaningful results maybe. So but they wouldn't come back and say, we'll fund this part of the project but not the other project, but not the other part of the project. Once in a blue moon they may do that. I don't know of when that's happened. Every once in a while there's a small contingency that reviewers might require in order to fund a project, but nothing about, usually not like a whole element of the project not being awarded. I'll be honest, last year we had 91 proposals. This year we anticipate having even more than that. So it's very competitive. So it would have to be really, 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 really strong element in order for that to rise above the other maybe 70 or more projects that are proposals that they're competing against. Let's see. If material comes from outside the region, does that qualify? And Emma answered, you can use both research information and physical materials from outside our region. The work must occur in the Northeast, and your results must benefit other farmers in the Northeast. So those two things are required. Your technical advisor can be from outside the region. You can have collaborators from outside the region. You can get materials from outside of the region. So sometimes people are testing something that maybe is used in another part of the country but hasn't been used in the Northeast before. So that's absolutely fine. Can outreach occur after the grant period? As Emma said, you must conduct some outreach during the grant period and include it in your final report. You can always conduct more outreach after your project ends, and we could, after the fact, add stuff to your final report. However, none of the expenses, so we wouldn't be able to fund any of that outreach, any of that extra outreach. Your expenses have to be expended before the grant contract end date. Back to human subjects research. If we indicate we'll have surveys, interviews, etc., do reviewers check with us before the grant approved about the human subjects research plan? No. So what happens is you answer the questions that we have in the proposal about human subjects research, and then we will review those questions to make a determination. And if there are, if we have to pursue a review, we will work with our research protections office to do that. And if they may say something like, you have to remove this from your survey, or you have to add this to your interviews, or in order to make sure that we can guarantee the welfare of the human subjects. Usually that's not the case in these projects. Human subjects research is usually more geared towards medical and health research. But for surveys and interviews, case studies, focus groups, all that kind of stuff, we do just have to be sure that you're not asking maybe for sensitive information or that sort of thing.
Candice, I'll also just add that it's very challenging if you want to do research with people who are under 18. So talk to us if that is your plan, because that can be much more difficult to get approved.
Yes. That's a very good point. Youth is really is a sensitive population, as are convicts, ex-convicts. There's immigrants. There are some sensitive populations, but youth is specifically a sensitive population, and our program is geared toward commercial farmers. So if you're going to be working with youth, like Emma said, get in touch with me, and we can make sure that it's a good fit for this grant program, because typically our projects, while they can benefit youth as a sideline, they shouldn't be geared towards benefiting youth unless there's some really specific way you can connect that to commercial farmers. But yes, youth is definitely a challenging population for us to work with because of those protections. And I just wanted to say about a follow-up with that section. You complete the section, we do all the review on our end. If you're awarded, we'll explain that either that you're exempt from further review, or we need to do something. But you don't need to worry about anything on that until after the award. A two-part application that benefits animal infrastructure on one part being the land and the second part being the livestock. I'm not really sure what you're asking there, Karen. And I think it might be a follow-up on another question that you asked, but I'm not seeing. So if you want to raise your hand maybe, or come up on the screen, we could talk about that. Then another question, just so I'm clear, one of the experimental plots in our project examines the effect of liming, the effect of which won't be fully evident for 3 years. I can't do this portion using these grant funds, then true? Correct. There may be some other way. Sometimes liming actually does have an effect in a shorter amount of time. So it depends on what really you're looking for. And you could talk with a technical advisor, somebody who has experience in this, to see if there's any way you can evaluate what you're doing sooner than 3 years. But if there is no way, then you're correct. You couldn't use our grant funds. Yeah, Emma said that very well. We can't pay for work outside the grant period. You could consider looking at the effect during the grant period and include a projection based on that data. With that in mind, reviewers will take that into consideration and understand that in in a competitive sense, it may not have as much impact as other projects. So it might not be as competitive as other projects if you're doing that, but you can certainly do that. Not planning to do work with under 18 for this. Okay. People who are formerly incarcerated, not ex-convicts. Thank you, Lorenzo. I wasn't finding the right words there, I know. Would Maine wild blueberries qualify? If they are part of your farming operation, they would qualify. Or if you want to use them as part of your farming operation, they would qualify. One of the main goals for our project is instituting a rotational grazing system. Need to install fencing and purchase materials to build mobile shelters, chicken tractors. Will the grant cover these kinds of expenses? Yes, we will not cover permanent structures like permanent fencing, but if the temporary fencing is required for the project and you're only using it for the project, we can pay for it. If it's something that will be of use after the project ends, whether it's by you or by another farmer, then we will pay a prorated rate on that. And that's all explained in our call for proposals in Appendix C. And what that means, prorating means that if you have a piece of equipment or like fencing and temporary fencing that you want to purchase, we would pay, and typically agricultural equipment has a useful life of 5 years, according to some IRS data guidelines. And so if it's got a 5-year useful life and your project is 2 years, we would pay for 40% of that piece of equipment. If it's not anything that could be useful after the project is over, regardless of the results, then we would pay for the whole thing. If it's something that you would use in your normal operations, even if you weren't doing the project, we would not pay for that at all either. Thanks. Emma put the link to the Appendix C in there. And yeah, I will be around. I'm around all over this whole week, the Thanksgiving break and everything. And then I'll be around until the deadline date for sure. So if you have any further questions, you can call me or you can email me. Best thing is to the best thing is to email me and set up a time, as Emma said, to talk, and we can either do a video conferencing or phone call, but that's usually the easiest way to connect. And I think we're at time. 12:59. Excellent. Thank you all so much for coming. I wish you all the best of luck on your proposals. Again, we aren't going to have any more formal Q&A sessions, but you can certainly contact me at any time and I'll answer your questions. One thing I did also wanted to mention was don't wait till the last minute to submit your proposal, because I usually do have a lot of inquiries coming in right at that time. So I can't guarantee that I'll be able to help you out if you need it at 4 o'clock on December 9th. So I encourage you to get your proposals submitted early so that you have time to deal with any issues that may come up, and feel free to contact me at any time. Thank you so much. And everyone have a great Thanksgiving.